我是阿婉，欢迎大家一起跟我看新闻、读新闻。联合国安理会批准特朗普提出的加沙和平计划，那中俄是弃权，就是联合国安理会周一批准了美国提出的加沙和平计划。那这一突破性的进展也意味着美国政府关于如何在停火的基础上推进重建历经2年战火的加沙地带的构想得到了联合国在法律上的授权。所以说，此次投票也是特朗普政府的重大外交胜利。过去2年，以色列哈马斯是冲突愈演愈烈，美国因坚定支持以色列在联合国是陷入孤立。美国提交的决议呼吁组建一支国际稳定部队进入加沙，负责该地区的非军事化与治理工作。这份提案包括特朗普提出的20点停火计划，还设想成为和平委员会监督和平实施计划，但未明确该委员会的构成。决议以13票赞成、0票反对的结果通过。本可实行否决权的俄罗斯和中国选择弃权，显然是受到多个阿拉伯和穆斯林国家支持态度的影响，包括埃及、约旦、卡塔尔、沙特阿拉伯、阿联酋以及安理会成员国印度尼西亚、土耳其和巴基斯坦。美国驻联合国大使麦克沃尔茨在投票前向安理会发表讲话，称加沙已成为人间地狱，并举起决议文本，形容它是一条生命线。投票结束后，沃尔茨感谢安理会，我们一同为以色列人、巴勒斯坦人以及该地区所有民众规划新道路。安理会决议具有国际法的约束力，尽管安理会没有强制执行机制，但可采取制裁等惩罚措施，惩戒违反决议者。这是双赢。致力于预防冲突的国际危险组织联合国事务理查德·高恩表示，既是特朗普的外交胜利，也彰显了联合国的重要性。不过，未来之路仍然充满不确定性。以色列对加沙的空袭仍然在继续，约旦河西岸也爆发了暴力冲突。后续关键步骤包括任命负责监督加沙过渡事务的和平委员会成员，以及明确国际维稳部队应该是在谁的指挥下运作。决议指出，若部分治理约旦河西岸的巴勒斯坦民族权力机构完全改革，且满目疮痍的加沙重建取得进展，巴勒斯坦人民实现自决和建国的可信路径或终将具备条件。阿尔及利亚驻联合国大使阿马尔本贾尔是安理会唯一阿拉伯成员国代表，同时代表联合国阿拉伯集团参与谈判。他感谢特朗普亲自介入，推动加沙冲突结束，但强调巴勒斯坦人的建国诉求不应被忽视。中东地区的真正和平离不开正义。为数10年来等待建立独立国家的巴勒斯坦人民争取正义。他说，法国、圭亚那、巴基斯坦、斯洛文尼亚、索马里等多个安理会成员国对决议未明确提及巴勒斯坦建国表示不满。但他们认为，为支持政治过程，防止暴力重燃，让急需的人道主义援助进入加沙，最终认可该提案。这些国家重申，加沙的领土完整必须得到维护，持久和平必须建立在2国方案基础之上。尽管如此，决议中关于巴勒斯坦建国的表述遭到以色列反对。以色列总统本雅明内塔尼亚胡周日表示，我们反对在任何领土上建立巴勒斯坦国的立场从未改变。国际维稳定部队将面临多项挑战，其中包括如何应对在加沙地带并持有武器的哈马斯武装人员。决议规定，该部队负责摧毁加沙的军事基础设施，并收缴激进组织的武器，但预计向加沙派遣士兵的阿拉伯和穆斯林国家埃及、印度尼西亚、土耳其、阿联酋 对此心存疑虑。他们担心本国军队与巴勒斯坦激进分子发生武装冲突，且更多流血事件可能引发阿拉伯民众反对其介入。特朗普政府寻求联合国授权，正是因为这些国家表示必须要安理会的批准，避免本国军队被民众视为加沙的占领者。以色列驻联合国大使丹尼达农周一表示，哈马斯非军事化是和平协议的基本条件，只要哈马斯仍持有武器，加沙就没有未来。该决议上周在谈判中经历多次修改，遭到包括欧洲在内多个安理会成员国的强烈反对。这些国家要求就巴勒斯坦建国问题及和平委员会的职能做出更明确的表述。上周晚些时候，向来在涉美决议上立场一致的中俄两国曾提出反对，险些导致决议夭折。俄罗斯起草了自己的10点加沙提案，明确呼吁巴勒斯坦国建立巴勒斯坦国，并主张以色列占领的约旦河西岸与加沙应合并为巴勒斯坦民族权力机构管辖下的统一国家。美国在决议上仅做出最低限度的妥协，转而争取阿拉伯和穆斯林国家的支持，施压中俄却误成为阻碍加沙突破性进展的一方。外交官员透露，沃尔茨在谈判中还警告各国，若决议不能通过，加沙停火将彻底破裂。对于所有主要相关方而言，该决议都利害攸关。巴勒斯坦人希望苦难与战争结束，以色列人希望哈马斯解除武装，而美国则希望成为推动该地区和平的主要力量。决议授权联合国下属机构世界银行调配资金用于加沙重建，并呼吁为此设立专门信托基金。决议授权和平委员会监督加沙事务至少至2027年底，并规定加沙的日常管理一支由加沙本土合格巴勒斯坦人组成的技术型非政治型委员会负责。国际稳定部队还将与埃及和以色列协调培训并支持巴勒斯坦警察队，保护平民，保障人道主义通道安全及边境地区安全。看上去是一个挺好的消息，那也希望加沙能够早日恢复和平，毕竟当前真的是人间炼狱。In major breakthrough, UN Security Council adopts U.S. peace plan for Gaza. The United Nations Security Council on Monday approved President Trump's peace plan for Gaza, a breakthrough that provides a legal UN mandate for the administration's vision of how to move past the ceasefire and rebuild the war, remake Gaza Strip after 2 years of war. The Council's vote was also a major diplomatic victory for the Trump administration. For the past 2 years, as the conflict between Israel and Hamas has raged, the United States had been isolated at the United Nations over its staunch support for Israel. The U.S. resolution calls for an international stabilization force to enter, demilitarize and govern Gaza. The proposal, which contained Mr. Trump's 20-point ceasefire plan, also envisioned a board of peace to oversee the peace plan, though it does not clarify the composition of the board. The resolution passed with 13 votes in favor and 0 votes against. Russia and China, either of which could have voted it, as then apparently swayed by the support for the resolution from a number of Arab and Muslim nations: Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, as well as Indonesia, Turkey, and Pakistan, which is a member of the Council. Mike Waltz, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, who addressed the council before the vote called Gaza, held on Earth and held up a copy of resolution describing it as a lifeline. After the vote, Mr. Waltz thanked the Council for joining us in charting a new course for Israeli, Palestinian, and all the people in the region alike. Security Council resolutions are considered legally behind the international law, and although the Council does not have mechanism for enforcing such resolutions, it can take measures to punish violators with penalties such as sanctions. It's a win-win, said Rich Gowan, the UN director of the International Crisis Group, a conflict-preventing organization. It's a diplomatic victory for Trump, but also a recognition that the UN matters. Still, the path forward is pleased, but many uncertainties. With Israeli strikes continue in Gaza and outbreaks of violence erupting in the West Bank, among the next steps would be naming members of the Board of Peace and the body in charge of overseeing the transition in Gaza and clarifying under whose authorities the Stabilization Force would operate. The resolution says that if the Palestinian Authority, which partly governs the West Bank, undergoes reforms and the redevelopment of the shattered Gaza Strip advance, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Algeria ambassador to the United Nations, Ahmad Benjamin, the only Arab member of the Council and who was negotiating on behalf of the UN Arab Group, thanking Mr. Trump for his personal engagement in bringing the conflict in Gaza to the end, but he said the aspirations of Palestinians for a state should not be overlooked. Genuine peace in the Middle East cannot be achieved without justice for the Palestinian people who had waited for decades for the creation of their independent state. He said many Council members, including France, Guyana, Pakistan, Slovenia, and Somalia, had issues with the fact that the resolution did not include clear language on Palestinian statehood, but they said that they had endorsed the proposal to support the political momentum, prevent the resurgence of violence, and allow much needed humanitarian aid to flow into the enclave. They reiterated that the territorial integrity of Gaza must return intact, and that lasting peace must be rooted in a two-state resolution. Still, the languages in the resolution about Palestine statehood has drawn objections from Israel, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying on Sunday that our opposition is to a Palestinian state in any territory has no change. Among the challenges the international stabilization force will face is how to confront Hamas fighters who are still armed and present in Gaza. The resolution states that the force would be responsible for destroying military infrastructure in Gaza and decommissioning the militant group weapons, but Arab and Muslim countries expected to send soldiers to Gaza. Egypt, Indonesia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates are wary of their troops engaging in armed clash with Palestinian militants and of any more bloodshed turning abrupt public opinion against their involvement. The Trump administration showed the mandate at the United Nations because those countries said they needed Security Council authorization so that their troops would not be viewed by their own populations as occupiers in Gaza. Israel's ambassadors to the United Nations, Danny Danon, said on Monday the demilitarization of Hamas is a basic condition of a peace agreement. There will be no future in Gaza as long as Hamas possesses weapons. The resolution went through multiple revisions in negotiations last week and faced significant pushback from the many Council's members, including Europeans, who demanded more clarity on Palestinian statehood and the board of the peace. At one point late last week, objections by China and Russia would typically coordinate their positions around resolutions by the United States, threatened to derail the resolution altogether. Russia drafted its own 10-point counter-resolution on Gaza, which called outright for Palestinian statehood and said that Israeli-occupied West Bank and Gaza should be joined as a state under the Palestinian Authority. The United States made the minimal compromise on the resolution and instead rallied the support of the Arab and Muslim countries to pressure Russia and China not to be seen as obstacles to a breakthrough in Gaza. Diplomatic that Mr. Walz had also warned the countries during negotiations that if the resolution failed, the ceasefire in Gaza would collapse. The states were high for all major actors. Palestinians want the suffering and the war to end. Israeli want Hamas disarmed, and the United States hope to be the major player bringing peace to the region. The resolution allows the World Bank, a UN entity, to allocate financial resources for the reconstruction of Gaza and calls for the establishment of the dedicated trust fund for this purpose. The resolution authorities the board of the peace to oversee Gaza at least until the end of the 2027 and says that the enclave will be managed day to day by a technocratic or political committee of competent Palestinian from the Strip. The stabilization force would also coordinate with Egypt and Israel to train and support the Palestinian police personnel, protect civilians, work to serve humanitarian corridors, and secure border areas. Thanks for your listening, and finger crossed that the Gaza will have peace again, and hoping your life fully with happiness and joys.